All information contained in this podcast is general in nature and does not consider your individual circumstances. You should consider the appropriateness of this information with regards to your individual objectives, financial situation, and needs. Welcome to Sharing More Than the Sheets, a podcast to help you and your partner make better financial and lifestyle decisions so that you can both focus on the things that you love. I'm your host, Michael Khouri, financial planner, green thumb, husband, and just dad. Have you ever felt sick, fat, and tired? That is the question today that I wanted to talk about with Dr. Patricia Boulogne, the author of a book that is literally called that. Why are you sick, fat, and tired? Dr. Patricia Boulogne is a certified functional medicine practitioner, coach, chiropractor, speaker, and author of this eye-opening book, which I came across the other week, which prompted me to contact her to invite her on to Sharing More Than the Sheets. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I love being here, and I love sharing knowledge, and that's one of my missions, is to share knowledge with people so they can make better decisions and how to move forward and have the breakthroughs that they need. So that's great. I'm glad to be here.
It's an absolute pleasure, and to be honest with you, that's actually the impression that I got when I was looking at your book and reading through its contents, because it does take a special type of passion to not just come up with a title like that, but to write a book literally on this exact topic. Can I ask just a bit about your medicine background, your medical background, and what I guess encouraged you or prompted you to write a book like this?
Wow. I think we're going to be on here longer than 20 minutes. But the reason, and I can answer that thoroughly, I had a very interesting, weird woo-woo experience. A friend of mine was a VP for an insurance company, and she was in Boston. I was living in Boston at the time. And she said, meet me and you can come walk through the venue. Everyone has like their networking station set up. And so when I went there, bear with the story. When I went there, she said, you've got to talk to this woman. And because this woman is, sitting across from this guy who reads palms. And I said, and how do I factor in on that? And she said, well, this guy told her 8 years ago, she was going to get married 5 times and she was going to outlive her husbands. And so she didn't believe him. And the love of her life, she lost him 3 months after they were married, and she lost the next person after, just before they got married, and she stopped dating. And as the universe had it, they put her directly across from the guy who told her that 8 years ago. She said, you're so good with mindset, and helping people have breakthroughs in their thinking. You got to go talk to her. And so I went, okay. And I went and found this booth, and she goes, and by the way, she told me, make sure you have your palms read because he's very interesting. And so I went, oh, okay. So I went and told this woman, you can't give this guy that much control, because we do that all the time. We give up our control and we give it or offer it to somebody else and, let them have power over us. So I talked her into going to see this guy. She came back. She thanked me. I manned her booth, got her a couple leads, and then I got in line and had my palms read. And when I sat down, this guy doesn't know me, never saw me before, doesn't know what I do or anything else like that. And I sat down in front of him and I put my palms down because he asked to see my palms. And he looked up at me with this huge surprised face saying, oh my God, your days of healing 1-to-1 are over. And he got my attention right from the get-go. So I said, what do you mean? Where do you see that? And I go, now I want to know every line that he sees and what it means and things like this. So I had this conversation with him, and he told me, he goes, you're going to write a book that can help masses of people have a better idea about how to be well and how to make better decisions in their life regarding their health. And I went, I don't think so. I'm retired. I'm not doing this. I'm retired. I know this is like, I'm thinking this guy's just, full of it. Yep. And so one night, and he certainly planted the seed. And I kept on saying, what would I, talk about? And he also told me I had the ability that he has to be able to help people intrinsically and on an intuitive level, which I do, so I couldn't disagree with that one on him. And I can guess things with people sometimes. It's like, oh, what did you have fried food for last night? And they look at me like, how do you know that? and and I did that a lot in my practice. If I had my hands on people, I had a connection with my patient and my clients, and holding their hands or whatever it was. And so, the whole moral of that story is that time passes. And one night I wake up and I went, I know exactly what I'm going to write about. I know exactly how to help people. Because if people knew where to start their health journey, they could make better decisions going along, right? And so I decided, I'm going to write a book of questions. And so I had no idea how to really put that together. And I started researching things that I already had because I felt like I already had the wisdom to do that. So I put together all these questionnaires that I had that helped me decide what organ system and what system in the body wasn't functioning properly that was taxing the immune system. And, I put it in a logical order, made up this chart so that you could map out what your scores were. And a lot of this came from people who were my mentors and my gurus in my industry at the time, a lot of those questions and how they put their questionnaires together, and modeling that type of thing. But then and one day I did it and I asked people, I said, how much would you pay for a book like that? Well, how much would you, and would you buy it? And so as it had it, that book of Why Are You Sick, Fat, and Tired was supposed to be published in 2018 in December. And I had a big problem with the publisher who didn't fulfill his end of the deal. And so it didn't get published on just before COVID-19. And so, there's nothing by chance. And so this book coming out just before COVID-19 helps people answer those questions of why am I sick, fat, and tired? And I had one person who was in my business group from Aussie, from you down in land down under there, and who said to me, I'm not sick, I'm not fat, and I'm not tired. So why would I want to ever buy your book? And so I said, you would want to buy it because, if you're tired, everyone knows that. Whether you pay attention to it or not is another thing. And if you're fat, you can kind of look in the mirror and get an idea or how your clothes are fitting you. Or do a body composition test, which will tell you what your internal fat is. And that's when all of a sudden you see somebody who's really thin, like poof, die on a nanosecond. But you don't know if you're sick because sick takes a while to brew up. Like I said, most people that I saw in all my years of being in practice don't get sick until after they're 40. They don't start showing chronic illness and disease. And it's because they've been wearing and tearing at their body for such a long time. Wouldn't it be great to put the brakes on that stuff before that happened so it doesn't become a crisis, and not put the cart before the horse, and make going back to basics, the new norm, so that you have a foundation to actually work with. So if something does go on, you have something to be able to draw from. So that's a long answer, and honest answer about how this book kind of started to come to be. And the title, I was, talking to my sister who is, she's really good at, editing. She can find, why did you put the letter A there? and drive you crazy with these red marks on it. So her and I brainstormed the title, and then somebody else put in the question. I said, but the question is why? Not are you sick, fat, and tired? The question is why? You want to know why, because when you know your why, you can do something about it. And when you know who your why is in your life, then it gives you the impetus to forge on and decide what your next best steps are.
See, yeah, I find that I could really relate to a lot of what you're saying, because as a financial advisor, I set up, we work with life insurance for clients. And I just notice it as a trend that once somebody hits their 40s, they're a lot more likely to have all these extra health issues than they did when you compared to somebody that's in their 30s. So and obviously as they get older, the more likely there are pre-existing conditions and diagnoses, and they're on medication and all the rest of it. But it's definitely a trend that I see. And it's, I guess, and as a practitioner, when you used to see patients and used to help them with their health problems, what would you say is the biggest reason people went down that path? Do you think it's just neglect, thinking they're invincible? Do you think it's time? Or do you think they've always thought they were doing enough?
Well, I think people are misinformed from the get-go. And because you're not your DNA, you are how your DNA responds in your environment. So there's three reasons why people get sick. People get sick, because of trauma, toxins, and thoughts. And trauma relates to the birthing process. 9 out of 10 children who are born have some type of cervical damage. It's proven. It's a statistic. And I'm not making this up. That's why you go to a chiropractor and you get your kid adjusted right after they get born, and you get adjusted on a regular basis because structure is function. Pain is not a lifestyle. The second thing is, if you keep on eating exactly like you did, because this is the part for the toxins, like your parents did. The thing is that foods have changed so much in the last 50, 60 years is that, an apple isn't an apple, it's a GMO apple, and because they genetically modified these fruits and vegetables. Now they're trying to genetically modify the human race. And so those toxins are important from the air that you breathe, the water you drink, the food that you eat, the gardening chemicals that you inhale, also like your cleaning stuff that you use in your house. You've got to read labels, and you have to not only look at the ingredient, but you have to look at what's the side effect or the exposure to this specific ingredient, because if it's cancer, you wonder why there's so many people have cancer. There's a lot of that relates to those toxins. And then we come to the third reason, which is really poignant, because if you don't get a handle on your thoughts, you will undo any good up to 7 times what you do to fix the trauma and also fix the toxins, in your life. And so that, in the thoughts, people get up at night, they can't sleep. Sleep is the third pillar of health. And just so that you know what the pillars of health are, the first is nutrition and diet, which you must have good nutrition diet, not, they're two different things under the same umbrella, because you can have a bad diet and still say, well, I've got a diet, and that doesn't work. And then exercise and getting the appropriate exercise and movement. My second patient ever at 92 said to me, Dr. Pat, if you don't move, you're going to die. And then number 3 is sleep. Number 4 is positive mental attitude, that mindset, and taking a look at how can, if the world, for people right now, the world is flat. The world is not flat. It is round. And there's a lot of possibilities out there. And being on top of your game really requires you to start off your day hitting the ground running with that first positive thought, and doing good deeds and having fun. And then the last part is the structure, function, and posture. If you don't have your body trained for posture, you see a baby walk across this, or not walk across, but crawl across the floor. They first start pushing their legs, and that's to exercise. So we all have to have a muscle that we're exercising, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and social. And so when you help people and you see that trend in people in their 40s, is because they just thought they were just they just did what their parents did. And it's like the little girl who asked her mother, why do you cut the end of the ham off? And after really bugging her, she said, just go ask your grandmother, because that's how your grandmother did it. And when she went to ask her grandmother bursted out laughing and said, well, it's because it didn't fit in the pan. And so you have to take a look at, that whole big broad spectrum of that, and the book, relating back to the book, and for that just for a second, it's a guidebook, it's a workbook, and it's an advocating tool. So if you look at this, you know where your weakest link is, and you also know where your strongest link is. So you know what you've got to work with, and you know what your health pattern is, because it's not just one thing.
Yes. And I have noticed that, because it goes, the chapters themselves are titled, there's the digestive system, the detox system, the endocrine, if I'm saying that properly, system, glucose, endocrine, cardiovascular, emotional, immune, urological, nervous system. I guess it's like anything. It's all connected to each other in some way. And I find it really interesting that you do mention the whole mental side of things, because, some study that I came across recently, I don't know if it's a new study, but here in Australia, and insurance companies are very aware of this, but there's been proof out there that back pain or back issues are actually connected to mental health. And again, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know if it was credible research that I came across, but I have heard it a few times from a few different sources. So it's, I guess there's the old saying that, a lot of it's up in the head, and those that are positive, I find, are sometimes more likely to be healthier physically. Would you agree on that?
Well, I would I would, it depends on what you define as healthy, but I suppose, but, in relationship to the mental health part of it, when people have, when they're in that mindset of not being positive, we know that the anxiety and depression and a lot of mental wellness is related to the gut. So if you're eating poor foods, then you're going to have more inflammation in your body. If you have more inflammation in your body and you have back pain, you're going to have more back pain. In fact, I tell people to always check in if they have back pain, what they ate the day before or what they ate for their last meal before, because that inflammation process can start up within an hour and a half, 2 hours after you eat. So it's really important, like not to eat sugar. Stay away from white flour, stay away from pasta and rice, things like that, and have it in moderation. Like a serving size of rice is only a half a cup. And so is it for pasta. I mean, so, I sometimes think, well, why bother? I just rather have more vegetables, and over fruit, because fruit has a lot of sugar in them, so, and I had a patient one time who was, when I released him on that Friday, he was doing, like, he was in sync, he was on his game, and him and his girlfriend went away for a romantic weekend, and they went out and they picked, it was plum season in Massachusetts, and they went up to New Hampshire or something like that. And when he came back on Monday, he was in so much pain. He goes, I didn't do anything. I mean, seriously, I didn't do anything to hurt my back, and he goes, but it's like right where it was, like, in the middle of last week. And I said, well, what did you do? Where did you go? Because people don't think about what they eat causes them to have mental health problems and also additional pain or promoting a disease. Because either you're fighting it or you're or you're fixing it by what you eat. Food is medicine. But anyway, so he ate plums. They are so full of sugar, and I said to him, I said, plums, like sugar plums, sugar plum fairies. He goes, Dr. Pat, I'm so sorry. I did everything that you did last week. And I just said to him, well, just fix it. Just don't eat plums. Yep. And people don't understand how to organize their food, and they don't know how to eat. They never were taught, of how to organize their food so they have a strong immune system. And so, you've got to take a look at like that mental health component. It's not, like Louise Hay says, like, people with low back pain, the emotion that goes with it is fear of the future, fear of money, some problem with money. I mean, that's like, you should hear that all the time. Yeah. It's just like, I need to know how to keep it. I need to know how to make it better, and I need to know how to keep it better. So you have all those reasons why that do it. Because if you fix your gut, Dr. Pat quote, you can quote me on this, as I say, if you fix your gut, you change your life. And, because you there's this whole process that goes on. We could be on here for like 2 hours, but I would love to talk to people about that, because when they understand that, they get the like why food's so important and why the gut is so important to any part of your health and going forward. And you also, when you look at the genetic component of that, you've got to take a look at the family, right? And like, this is my family's propensities to have X, Y, and Z. Well, what can I do so I don't get it? Change your constitution. How you change your constitution is by your free will choice of what you put in your mouth and the quality of the food that you put in your mouth, from the toothpaste, that you use, to the water that you drink. And the water should be like a 7.2, and being hydrated, because all those 5 pillars I mentioned before have one requirement for all of them to function really well, and that's hydration. And you made one other comment that I have a note on, and that is like the questionnaire. I've been told that questionnaire represents an intensive questionnaire that your doctor should ask you about your organ systems and how they're functioning. If they did that, they would be able to target exactly where your weakest link is. But I have been told repetitively over and over and over again by hundreds of people, thousands of people, that said to me, my doctor's never asked me those questions. And so this is why you take, you have to take accountability in your health and your control, and buy something like this book that it's like, why are you sick, fat, and tired? Because if you really want to make, everyone makes health resolutions, right? In New Year, this is the perfect way to do that, because then you know where to spend your time, energy, and your money, and what organ system needs your attention now, not like 5 years from now, which will be a really bad experience.
These podcasts have been brought to you by Better Financial Planning Australia. To book a free 15-minute phone chat, visit betterfinancialplanning.com.au. Well, to be honest, I can actually relate to that, to what you mentioned about, looking in the wrong place or not asking the right questions, because I actually went and saw my doctor no joke, about 2 weeks ago, just explaining that I'm feeling really down lately, really tired. And I said, look, can we just do a blood test just to make sure there's nothing going on with me? And he requested this blood test. I said, can you just request as many things as you can to be safe? He said, yep, no worries. Went and did the blood test, and it came back all clear. And I went and saw my naturopath late last week, and she asked for a copy of the blood test. I showed it to her, and she goes, oh, that's interesting. He never actually asked to check your vitamin D, iron levels. It's like, he was sort of looking for, it's, again, I don't understand the medical side of things, but it's as if he was looking for like major health issues more than something like that. Anyway, went and did the blood test to check these things, and it turned out I've got like 20% of the amount of iron that I should have in my body. So,
so the question is how to get that back in your body, right? Because it's hard, because iron just doesn't go through, like heavy metals.
Or why it dropped in the first place as well.
Well, that's the why, so you have to look at what your organ system is, that it's your weakest link, and you can get on a call with me, because I offer that in my book, to be able to chat with me about what your results are, and we can talk about that. But iron's really hard to get into the system, so you have to like almost have it like in an elemental version of, in a kind of like liquid version almost, and be able to be more absorbable. And looking at foods that naturally have iron in them, that you can eat that to help support that. That's a whole nother, that's a consult.
Yeah, of course.
But the interesting thing that you mentioned is the blood work, though. And yes. Because when, you go into a doctor, most doctors just ask you, say, like, Michael, by the way, I love your name. Your name just rolls off your tongue. It's just like, it's a beautiful name. But when you go into the doctor, the doctor asks you questions, so if you had this book and you did it before you went in there, you could target very much more easily, because I don't guess, I test, and this is my first test. And then I order blood workup, because it makes sense. It makes sense to me to do that, so that I know where to focus. And in this day and time, it's, the consequence of not doing, when he did a general blood panel, which doesn't show you anything except general stuff, then, not do the vitamin D in this day and time, it's just like he wasn't thinking. And because that would be a component for you too, and then also doing those micronutrients and those macronutrients. So, where the calcium's at, where's, like what's going on with calcium, what's going on with manganese, what's going on with, and those other things. The manganese, by the way, is very good for the low back, especially with pain with B6. And so that in that combination, is really good also. So, but, you're like in your naturopath, good for her. And when I look at blood workup, doctors take a look at it and they go, hey, this is pretty good. Everything is within normal limits. Well, for me, that's not good enough. For me, I look at, it's got to be so in the middle of in normal, that it's like right in the center, because you can have high normals and you can have low normals.
Yeah.
Low normals are trending to go low, and high normals are trending to go high. Why would you wait in God's green earth for them to get on either the high side or the low side? Because then you're in crisis, Yeah. And there's so many things that you can do, and homeopathic things that you can do, like, for iron, in ways to get iron in your system too. But it's important to have it. And, Standard Process makes an interesting product for that. It's called Fotil, and they sell it in Australia. There's two, there's two people, I'll give them to you after the show, that are connected with Standard Process MediHerb in Australia, that produce some really phenomenal, supplements. And maybe your naturopath already knows of them, but I would definitely check them out.
Yeah, nice. And to me, this experience has sort of taught me to always listen to my body. And I think, and I'm assuming that's one of your strong messages as well, that anyone listening to this episode should listen to their body if they're feeling tired, if they're feeling sick, if they're feeling something that just isn't them, to talk to somebody to get it checked and not just ignore it, because there's a chance it's not going to go away.
Well,
to me, I've got 3 children. So for me, I thought I was just feeling tired because of kids. I was like, oh, it's just family life, dad life, work life, everything life. But obviously it turned out to be a lot more than that. And I would have not known if I hadn't done the test.
Well, you've got to be in good shape if you have kids. I mean, period. Because, ask your wife how the birthing process was on those 3 kids. It's just like, it's exhausting, and people go through the whole day and they don't realize they're looking at the clock at noon and wishing that they could take a nap, and so many people are depleted because they're not, eating, the kinds of foods that really support, you to think better, feel better, and move better. And a lot of times people ask their relatives or their friends going like, I've been really tired lately. They go, oh, mate, don't worry. I've been tired lately too. I just take a nap now in the afternoon, instead of going, well, why is that happening in the first place?
Yep.
And I was the student always in the back the teachers hated, because I would be in the back going, but why does that work that way? Like, how does that element, especially in chemistry, which always was over my head. But why does that element work that way? Like, how does, if it molecular weight is X, Y, and Z, why is that like that? I was the Y kid in a classroom, for that. And luckily, I got that from my father. I bless him for that part of it. It's like, why? But it's important to take note of those things and not, because I call that, if you looked at the book at all, I call it Grim Reaper syndrome. And so Grim Reaper syndrome is when you get a sign and a symptom and you don't pay attention to it. Like most people who don't have eye problems don't have floaters when they're younger, but they have them when they're older. Why is that? And it's like, why do those things come on? In Chinese medicine, I'm a Chinese physician also, that's considered stagnation. Something's like not, like the energy in your body is not working properly.
Yes.
So things start to accumulate and we don't realize that, and when we do realize it, then we're in the muck and we have to figure out how to get out of it. And a lot of times for some people, it's too late. They have, a new diagnosis. They don't pay attention to those signs and symptoms. And they have things like, or they have a mark that they're taking a look at and they're, and then next thing you know, I have a friend of mine who just ignored something like that. And he has stage 3 melanoma in his lungs now.
Wow.
I mean, it's just like, you've got to pay attention to what you think, what you eat, in your toxicity and how to get out of inflammation, because inflammation is the base cause for all problems. They said that the Western medicine people, stole that thunder in 2004 on Time magazine when they said inflammation was the common link between chronic illness and disease. So the idea is, where's the inflammation? What can I do to minimize it? And you can do that first by what you eat. And always food is medicine. And then looking at exercise and looking at supplementation and things like that.
Okay. And if somebody's listening to this episode and they are thinking, yes, I am feeling sick, I'm sick, fat and tired. I could relate to a lot of what Dr. Pat's saying. What would you say the first step is, apart from getting a copy of your book and going through that process? What would you say that person should do?
The first thing people should do is do the book honestly. It isn't a very long book, and get the paper version. And also understand sick is not like throwing up in the toilet. It's just like that's a night out, or food poisoning or something like that. I'm talking about, not feeling well and not knowing why you're not feeling well. And so after you do the book is to get the information from here, and you can either make time with me to virtually chat with me about it, and I can give you my bird's eye view about, if it were me, this is what I would do, because I never tell anybody something I wouldn't do. I mean, that's always been a major Dr. Pat rule from, day one when I got my degree, and I promised to help people thrive and do no harm. But I would say find somebody who can read that chart. Find a, functional medicine practitioner, a lifestyle medicine practitioner that can read the chart that you put your numbers in, and have a frank conversation with them. Like, why is this number like this? And have somebody who can look at the whole chart and look at your pattern. Because sometimes people go, oh, I have a high number in this. Sometimes I had people that I've had out of, all the, there's 11 organ systems, and some organ systems have up to 4 categories in them, have high numbers in almost everything above. And they go like, how do you know where to start? And I always say, fix your gut, change your life. And you can't do DIY medicine, and DIY medicine is dangerous. And because then what happens is that you end up having, then you can end up, doing more harm than good. By the time you're figuring out you're doing harm, it could put you in a bad position. and that, but you like knowing the basics and then being able to learn not to put the cart before the horse and think, and like, what's my next step? And stop eating crap food and hydrating enough. Like, for instance, the hydration point is in ounces, because I don't know if you're in metric or not, but in ounces is 50% of your body weight. So if I weigh 100 pounds, I have to drink 50 ounces of water a day. If I hate drinking water, then drink it out of a straw. And then maybe put, some lemon juice or some lime juice, just to flavor it up a little tiny bit, but no sugar.
And if somebody did want to get a copy of your book and get in contact with you, what's the best way to do that?
Well, you can get it through Amazon. And I know you have Amazon and
Yes.
Down there. And one of my reviews in Australia, top reviews, is from Camden. It was really quite nice to see that. Also, you can Amazon. There's digital version, but like I said before, I don't recommend a digital version, because if you do digital, I don't know about you, but I know about me. It's like if I start going, I want this book, and I get the digital version or the audio version of it, I don't listen to it until I'm in a space where I can do that, where I sit in bed or sit, on a Saturday and going, I need to check in with what's going on with my health. This takes me, after I read it the first time, it takes me about a half hour to do all the questions that are in there, and then I get, solid information. And then the book leads you to the next thing. What do I do now? Now that I have this information, what's my next step, do now, there's so many people. I work a lot with people in the financial industry and with their clients, so that when they get to that point where they're supposed to be able to like really, carpe diem and, seize the day with their grandchildren and what their future looks like. I help them to be able to have the health, the wisdom, and to be stronger, have more balance and order, and with wellness initiatives, so that they're able to do that with their families and their loved ones.
Yeah, I could definitely hear your passion when you talk, to be honest. And I'm not surprised you wrote a book about it, to be honest, either. So,
it's all that it was all that guy in the very beginning who read my palms, because I would never probably it's just one of those like seeds that go along the way.
Yes,
and having the right people.
Yeah, well, or even it's something that probably would have happened, but it probably happened faster, I'm guessing, because you sort of maybe you realized it earlier than you would have naturally. Well,
yeah, I wrote programs. I wrote programs in Access, for herbals. Like what's the herb, what do you use it for, what their contraindications for, and any special notes that I needed to have. And I did it. A friend of mine taught me how to use Access because they used it, and they were financial people in Boston, and he had me do something for him. I said, I'll do it if you can get me to teach me how to do this, because I just thought this was a great way to put information so I could look it up like that, not thinking I would ever share it with anybody. But it was a good experience, like having that background, with that, and then also the exposure to like markers that you look at even in your industry, like why is that anyway, why is that over there? And so that was a question, why again, right? It's will be on my epitaph, why? Why?
Thank you so much, Doctor. I really appreciate your time. It's whoever's listening to this, if they haven't stumbled across your book, I'd really recommend that they do have a read of it. And one last thing, with all my episodes, I like to finish off with a dad joke. I don't know how big dad jokes are in the US, but where do pirates go to get their hooks?
Well, I have to say that I saw that someplace about a while ago, but I don't remember what the answer is.
They get them from secondhand stores.
That is cute. That is really cute.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those ones that sort of doesn't take too much thinking. But I mean, lately I've been dropping some dad jokes that most people aren't actually even getting. So that's what I really know, they're dad jokes. But it's yeah.
Because dads know those answers like that, right?
Pretty much. But no, again.
Thanks a lot. You have such a really beautiful energy, and I'm, I can just feel your passion for being a great dad.
Yeah, no, thank you. I really appreciate it. And again, and thank you for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
All right, super. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us on Sharing More Than the Sheets. Please make sure you subscribe to be updated with future episode releases, and feel free to share this episode with any friends or family that you think it might benefit. Please visit us at sharingmorethanthesheets.com.au to submit questions or requests for future podcast topics. These podcasts have been brought to you by Better Financial Planning Australia. To book a 15-minute phone chat, visit betterfinancialplanning.com.au.